Well, getting the engine to this stage is quite easy. There is a screw in the front which you undo, the front coupling comes off, the body drops out very easily. Now, one of the simple first things to look at is how much end float we've got in the armature, and somehow I've managed to get none in this one. But then I looked, I don't know if you can see that, but the lock nut has unlocked itself. I don't know, can you see that there's a little lock nut in there? Yeah, not quite sure what happened there. However, what we want to do this time is want to pull out the armature and have a look to see if we're missing a ball bearing. First thing to do is to take off the magnet. Now, someone out there is saying, but what if you put it in the wrong way round when you rebuild the thing? If you look, you can see on the right hand end of that magnet a little red dot. That was on there when I got the locomotive. I haven't added that. And if we look at the back end, oh, where are we? There we are. If we look at the back end of the locomotive, there's a little red dot there. So as long as we line the little red dots up, the magnet goes in the same way round as it came out. The engine will run the same way when it's put back together as it did when I took it apart. So there we are. Now, if your magnet hasn't got a little red dot, not a big issue, is it? You get a marker pen and mark it. Now, before we undo anything else, the next thing to do is to pull these little plugs out. They are a simple push fit. The first time I tried to undo one of these, I was screwing it left and right thinking it must have a screw thread. No, it's a push fit. And can I do it single-handedly? I can, just about. Now, let's pop that little plug where I won't lose it. If we look at the end of the tube with the brush in, ideally that spring should be flush with the end of the tube. There's lots of ways of achieving that. I could, for example, trim the brush a little bit, or I could nip a couple of turns off the spring. I guess I could compress the spring, but they don't seem to like that, and probably what would happen is the spring would go ping and end up in the carpet somewhere and take me 3 years to find. But anyway, the other end, again, there's a little pull out thing. I shall whip that out, then I will pull out the springs and adjust the brushes so that they're not in the way. I have cleaned the insides of the tubes on this one, so they might fall out, or then again they might not. In the top of the chassis casting is this little thing, which is an ordinary screw threaded job. Turn it anti-clockwise, it comes out. Turn it clockwise, it goes in. And you can use that to adjust the end float on the armature. Now, as I say, I don't know how I achieved this, but there is no end float on this armature. It doesn't move at all. There should be a little bit of fidget. Now, when I put it together, I thought I'd got it right. I thought I had. Maybe I hadn't. But I certainly had tightened up the little lock nut, and it's untightened itself, so you know, maybe it's gone adrift since I put it together. But we'll pull the armature out and see what we find. Right, I've popped that little adjusting screw, or screw adjuster, call it what you will, out. Now, these engines have, can we see that? They have a groove on one side of the casting which allows you to slide the armature out to one side. They come out a lot more easily than they go in. He said, because it doesn't want to come out one-handed, does it? I'm going to have to put the camera down and do this with two hands. Now, I don't know if you can all see that, but in the bottom of the casting there is a bronze bearing holder, and what's supposed to be in there is a ball bearing, tiny little one that the motor sits on. Now, I've been trying to work out how to show you, but every time I move this chassis to somewhere where you stand a chance of seeing, of course the light sort of defeats you. But I've had a good gander and I can see a shine that tells me that there is a ball bearing in there. I do wonder if it's actually the other end. The top one. Now the top one should also have a ball bearing in it, and when let's put that down on the white surface. Now when we look down there, I wonder, will I get some light on it? Come on, where's my light? I have got a light. When I look down that tube, we can see straight through it. So I think that's the problem. I think she's missing a little ball bearing, which is going to be an interesting problem, because at this time of a Monday night I don't know where there's a ball bearing shop open. Well, at this time of night there aren't many shops open at all, but if your name's Harry Faber and you've got spare parts of all sorts, if we look down that tube, this is a spare one that I've got, there's a ball bearing in it. Now, exactly how you get it out of that type of tube, well, that's one of life's little mysteries. But I shall see how to get a ball bearing out of a tube and then put it into that one and mantle up this engine. Wasn't the bottom bearing, I think it's the top bearing that's got a problem.